Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. The station known as Krios Alpha was once a marvel of orbital engineering. Now it is a metal tomb. A catastrophic reactor leak has turned the station into a twisting maze of buckling steel and flickering power. The air is thin, the lights are dead, and most importantly, the artificial gravity is failing. It pulses every 30 seconds, on and off, creating a rhythmic, violent environment where the floor becomes the ceiling and debris turns into a hail of shrapnel. Most people would call this place a death trap. Silas Vane calls it an advantage. Vane is back in the hunt. His target is Malachar, a legendary alien weapon master and a fugitive who has spent his life selling death to the highest bidder. Malachar is dangerous, fast, and enhanced with cybernetic limbs designed for high-mobility combat. He fled to Krios Alpha because he believed no human could follow him into a gravity-warped hellscape. He believed that human biology was too rigid, too dependent on the ground beneath its feet. He was wrong. This is the Zero-G Requiem. Silas Vane entered the station through a jagged breach in the cargo bay. He moved through the darkness, his tattered black cloak drifting around him like the wings of a predatory bird. He didn't wear a heavy thruster pack. He didn't use noisy jets. Instead, Vane used his own momentum and a pair of high-tension magnetic gloves. The station groaned. The sound of metal twisting echoed through Vane's boots. Then the gravity flickered. In an instant, everything that was floating slammed to the floor. Vane didn't struggle. He anticipated the shift. He dropped into a crouch, his boots locking onto the deck plating with electromagnetic saws. Around him, crates and shattered glass shattered into dust. 10 seconds later, the gravity cut out again. Vane pushed off the floor with a precise, controlled burst of strength, soaring through the center of the corridor. He was hunting by sound and thermal ghost. Inside his mask, Vane's vision was a world of cold blues and sharp grays. He could hear his own heartbeat, steady and slow. He could hear the hiss of his recycled oxygen. And then he heard the scrape of metal on metal. Malachar was waiting in the main centrifuge. The alien stood 8 feet tall, his 4 arms holding a variety of vibroblades and pulse pistols. He was anchored to the wall, his cybernetic eyes scanning the darkness. "You are a long way from the dirt, Hunter," Malachar's voice hissed over the open frequency. "This station is a symphony of chaos. A human mind cannot track the rhythm. You will fall when the weight returns." Vane didn't answer. He never talked during a take. He detached a small gravity anchor from his belt and hurled it into the center of the room. The anchor activated, creating a localized sphere of intense mass. The floating debris in the room was suddenly sucked toward the center. Malachar fired his pulse pistols, the blue bolts lighting up the darkness. Vane was already moving. He used his grappling line to swing around a support pillar, using the centrifugal force to gain speed. The 30-second timer hit 0. Gravity returned. The weight hit like a physical punch. Malachar's heavy cybernetic frame slammed against the floor, his joints grinding under the sudden force. But Vane was already in the air. He had timed his jump perfectly. He didn't fight the gravity, he let it pull him toward his target like a falling anvil. Vane slammed into Malachar, his stun baton crackling with white electricity. The alien fought with the desperation of a cornered animal, his 4 arms striking out in a blur of blades. But Vane was a master of close-quarters combat in restricted environments. He used his cloak to obscure Malachar's vision, moving through the alien's guard with the cold efficiency of a machine. The gravity cut out again. They floated into the air, locked in a violent embrace. Vane grabbed Malachar's primary cybernetic arm and triggered a magnetic pulse from his glove. The arm seized, the servos screaming as they locked up. Vane kicked off Malachar's chest, sending the alien drifting toward the center of the room where the gravity anchor was still spinning. Malachar tried to aim his remaining pistol, but the weightlessness made his aim erratic. Vane reached into his cloak and pulled out a heavy-duty containment cable. With a flick of his wrist, the cable snaked out, wrapping around Malachar's limbs and torso. Vane pulled the line taut, triggering the autolock. Malachar was cocooned, his weapons drifting away into the dark. The gravity returned one last time. Malachar hit the floor, immobilized and defeated. Vane landed softly next to him, his obsidian mask reflecting the orange glow of a distant fire. Malachar looked up at the hooded figure. "What?" he wheezed. "I could have paid you double, triple. You are a human. You live for credits." Vane knelt down, his glowing blue visor inches from the alien's face. "The contract is for the man," Vane said, his voice a cold whisper. "Not the coin. You sold a viral bomb to the syndicate. 3 colonies are dead because of your masterpieces. My credits don't come from blood money. Vane looked toward the station's reactor core. It was minutes away from a total meltdown. He could have left Malachar there and claimed the death bounty, but that wasn't the code. He dragged the cocooned alien toward his docking craft, but he stopped at the station's local control terminal. Using his wrist computer, Vane bypassed the security locks. He didn't fix the reactor, it was too late for that. Instead, he rerouted the remaining power to the emergency escape pods in the worker quarters, giving the few remaining trapped engineers a chance to launch before the station vaporized. Vane boarded the Vesper and detached just as Krios Alpha began to tear itself apart. He sat in the pilot's seat, watching the station become a silent bloom of fire in the rearview monitors. Beside him, Malachar was unconscious in a stasis field. Vane didn't celebrate. He didn't count the credits. He reached into his console and pulled out a small old-fashioned music box, a relic from Earth. He wound the key and let the soft, haunting melody of a requiem play through the cockpit. It was a tribute to the station, to the dead, and to the hunt. In the underworld of the galaxy, they tell stories of how Silas Vane caught the weapon master in a place where physics had died. They talk about the human who moves through zero gravity like he was born in the void. But Silas Vane isn't a ghost and he isn't a god. He is just a man with a mask, a code, and a very long memory. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. The vacuum is silent, but Silas Vane always hears the call of the hunt. If you enjoyed this zero-gravity showdown, hit that like button. Vane is just getting started. Comment below. If you were a bounty hunter, would you keep your target alive even if they were a monster? Subscribe for the next hunt, the Titan's Belly. The Vesper is back in the dark. The hunt continues.